What is up, Dynasty Leaguers? Welcome back into another DLF YouTube channel video. Today, we're going to be running through a one quarterback rookie mock draft to kind of mix it up a little bit. We've been hitting on some super flex, so we're going to do some one quarterbacks to kind of see whereabouts the quarterbacks might actually go in the second round, if we even talk about them at all. But I think that would be a little bit more informative to at least get that angle and then move on throughout the rest of the way, mixing up one quarterback and super flex here. But today is going to be just like last week. I had on Tyler Karp from DLF to join me for a mock draft. And today I have here Nick Whalen from Dynasty Nerds, an awesome dude from where I live as well, too. Although Nick got here first. I kind of joined in here pretty recently. But Nick, what's going on, man?
Nothing. Yeah, I joked we should do this one in the same room. We could just, we could be on the same mic, I'm vaccinated, so it'd be okay.
I'm not. I'll wear a mask. But that would be funny. We'd have to put one microphone in the middle and then have it be reading from both ends. That would have been really funny if we did that.
The entertainment value just would have went way up.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, hey, that might be an idea for something in the future. I know you guys at the Nerds, that's kind of how your flagship podcast is, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's in Ohio.
Yep.
Fantasy footballers. Hey, maybe you and I got something down the road.
Yeah. There we go. Hey, if people like it, put it as a comment.
Yes, that would be awesome. So Nick, you're joining me for a 4-round, one quarterback rookie mock. And I like to bring you on. I had you on for these last year as well. But I like your perspective because I feel like you have a semi-unique football perspective too, because you're a high school football coach. So you have that whole film grind and that kind of aspect of the game. Whereas I don't really watch tape and do all that. I mean, I watch the games, but I'm not studying it and breaking it down and doing all that. I'm much more analytical. So I really like hearing your perspective on a lot of these prospects. And I think a lot of the listeners and viewers will as well. So I'm very excited to get into this with you and talk about these players.
Yeah, and just a long time ago at DLF, me and George had film metrics. I mean, it's nice that I can hear the analytics side, as well, because they need to be paired. It can't be all analytics. Mm-hmm. It can't be all film. So yeah, hopefully it's good for the listeners, and I'll learn something from you too.
I hope so. I mean, you probably already know everything anyway. So cool. So what we did, just like last week, we both picked a slot here. So I'm going to be picking out of the 4 spot. Nick, you'll be picking out of the 8 spot. This is a one quarterback draft, as I mentioned a couple of times. So if you're ready, I'm just going to hit the start draft button. We're going to get right into it.
Let's draft, man.
Let's do it. A little different because it's one quarterback. So these super flex quarterbacks won't be up first. So
ooh. I
told you this isn't very ADP, at least not off the rip. There are some surprises in here. So 101 went Jamar Chase, which I feel like more often than not is going to be either Chase or Harris at the 101 in one quarterback leagues. Rashad Bateman at 102 as a wide receiver 2. I really like that. That might be spicy, but I really, really like it. But the spicy one here, Kyle Pitts at 1.03, which we are recording on March 31st. Today is Kyle Pitts' pro day. He has been all the rage on the Twitter sphere, running that 4.44 or 4.46 unofficial 40 at his pro day, measuring in. People are comping him to Calvin Johnson and Mike Evans, and it's just all crazy nonsense with Kyle Pitts. So 1.03 and a one quarterback might honestly be pretty accurate once rookie drafts come around in May.
Basically, Superman is what I heard today. So, I mean, get him at all costs is what people are saying.
Exactly. So, we don't really we had this whole conversation about Kyle Pitts off air. I really wish that we had recorded that. And it would have been perfect to put in right here because we could have talked about why we're not necessarily in agreement with Kyle Pitts that high. But it is what it is. We'll skip on that because that was a whole other 30-minute conversation. But it is what it is. But I'm on the clock, 1.04. I feel like this is a pretty easy pick for me. I'm just going to go Najee Harris, my RB1. I would have taken him at 1.01 just because I'm a rookie running back over a rookie wide receiver guy. I really like Jamar Chase, but Najee Harris, to me, has everything that you want out of a running back. I really hope – I don't know if he's going to get first-round draft capital. The NFL seems to be swaying away from that. but I do think that he would be the first running back off the board, and he kind of has everything that you want in terms of rushing, receiving. I watched an interview with him at his pro day afterwards, and he seemed like just an awesome dude in general, funny guy, and I'm in on it. 1.04 Najee Harris.
Yeah, I mean, his comp for me is similar to like maybe a less athletic or straight line speed Matt Forte. I think that the biggest thing I see on film, just to comment on that, is much better pass catcher than you would think, but also he's not as physical. He likes to avoid. He has really good lateral agility and vision for a big back. So he wants to avoid more than he wants to run over, which I'm okay with. I think that extends careers. I think it adds more rushing yardage, and especially when you're in space catching the ball. I want you to avoid more and get more yardage.
Love it. Yeah, I'll take a Matt Forte comp for a slightly less athletic. Holy cow, Matt Forte. I'll take it. I saw the like highlight reel that I watched of Najee. He like mossed Patrick Queen in 2019. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty in on that. Mm-hmm. If you got that skill, you can do that. I'm about it. So Nick, you're on the clock here. 1.08. ETN, Javonte Williams, and Trevor Lawrence at 1.07. So you're on the clock here. You got basically your pick of all these other wide receivers after Chase and Bateman. If you want to dip into the running back pool, you got like Kenneth Gainwell, Jamar Jefferson. You can go quarterback or tight end. Where are we looking at?
This one's pretty easy for me. My wide receiver 2's on the board. I'm going to take Devonta Smith. I don't care how much he weighs. On the field, he is a beast. He runs great routes. He really turns defensive backs. He has such sticky hands. When they interviewed Jerry Jeudy, because people forget this, he was the number 1 wide receiver recruit out of those 4, the big 4 at Alabama. They asked Jeudy, who's the best at whatever, and Waddle has the most flat out speed, and Jeudy said he ran the best routes, and Ruggs was the fastest, but Smith had the best hands. And for a guy that's skinny, as long as he catches the ball, what do we really care? And he gets open. And I think he's just a phenomenal football player. And people think, sometimes people look at the negatives or the weaknesses way too much, and they don't think of the overall picture of the player. And the overall picture of Devonta Smith is he's a really good football player.
So I wanted to ask you, I know you're coming at this from a film perspective, but when you hear analytics guys talking about, he's got a 20-year-old 30% breakout age, I believe, and he's an older prospect just in general, a 4-year guy. Does that have any impact on Smith for you? I mean, I guess not. He's your wide receiver too. So I'm just curious how you bring that all in along with your film evaluation of Smith. Because, I mean, I can't deny Smith is a baller. Dude's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's amazing on tape.
Yeah, no, it doesn't for me because, I mean, I think breakout age and market share, I think all this stuff really reflects the team. It reflects a lot of what's going on. If they watch Smith, his freshman year, so again, you want to see him do something, he caught the game-winning touchdown to win the national championship. I think that would count for something. So, constantly when they went to him, even in his junior year when LSU was the best team maybe ever, they were down. And when they were down by 2 scores late in the 4th, Tua looked off the safety and went deep to Smith, who burned, I can't remember the corner, who was pretty good, but continually got burned in college. And it was an 80-yard touchdown. So, he was counted on in big moments. And to me, when you add that together and the Heisman, I don't have any issues on him staying longer.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same camp, even for being an analytics guy. Smith is my wide receiver 3. I would take Bateman over him. Just because I think Bateman's a little bit safer, but I think Smith has that much higher ceiling that if he does hit and he explodes, we're looking at a phenomenal wide receiver. And it's funny that you bring up size as well, too, because he is a little bit smaller, but he's pretty big compared to Tutu Atwell, at least. So.
Oh, jeez.
I will not get over Tutu Atwell weighing in at 155 or whatever it was.
That's unbelievable. Well, I saw did you see the one tweet where it was Tutu Atwell looking at Rondale Moore like he's Derrick Henry? It was
Ingram and Derrick Henry.
That was amazing. That's a great tweet.
That was the greatest thing ever. Yeah, so there will probably be a lot of Tutu Atwell jokes from me in the future on this channel. So I had a lot of fun with that one. Just seeing it on Twitter, it was insane to me. But cool. So Najee Harris was my pick at the 104. Devonta Smith was yours at the 108. We really like our Alabama players. So reading down the rest of the first round went Rondale Moore, and then Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Waddle, Terrace Marshall to round out the first. Then Elijah Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jamar Jefferson were the first 3 picks in the second. So I'm on the clock here at the 2.04. And I think, again, my pick is actually kind of easy. One of my favorite players in this class, and actually my wide receiver 6, even though 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 wide receivers are already off the board. I'm going to take Tylan Wallace, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. Really, really like Wallace and his production, especially early on. I'm not a huge fan of him as a 4-year guy, but I do understand, he tore his ACL and he came back and was able to show and prove that he was able to, come back and he was fully recovered from that. And also kind of avoid the 2020 wide receiver class as well, which is also very good. And I think that really helps his draft stock, which is super important for wide receivers too. So if he's a 2nd-round guy in this class, even a 3rd, I think that would be better than what he would have been last year. So I really, really like Wallace, a Biletnikoff finalist, lost out to Jerry Jeudy. So I really, really, really like Tylan Wallace, one of my favorite prospects in this class.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him as well. I think people are sleeping a little bit because of what's happened to Oklahoma State wide receivers, James Washington, etc. But he's a really complete guy, runs really good routes. He can moss people, but he also has the athleticism. I think even the Oklahoma State offense might have held him back. I think he could have done more, and he came back from the knee. If you're worried about it, he came back and produced, so I don't have any issues with it.
Sweet. Yeah, and I mean, he ran a sub 4.4 at Exos, which, you can believe whatever you want about these pro day times and whatnot, but like the fact that he was able to run that, I think speaks volumes in terms of his recovery and everything from that ACL injury. So I really like Tylan Wallace. I'm all about that one. So you're on the clock, 2.08. Michael Carter, Diami Brown, and Chuba Hubbard were the 3 picks in between you and I. So here you're looking at, all the quarterbacks are still there. Maybe it might be quarterback time in one quarterback. Seth Williams, Kadarius Toney, Trey Sermon, both the tight ends are still there. There are some other running backs, but not sure if you're going to go that route. But what are we looking at here, 2.08?
Yeah, this is a really tough spot, I think, because you really are thin at running back, although I think that might be my top choice between that wide receivers left. There's not a whole lot of guys that I like. You could go tight end 2, but I think it might be a little bit early. Even in 1 quarterback leagues, I think this is right where I would take a quarterback, because what you're thinking about is you're saying, okay, what guy could either be an RB2, maybe a flex, a wide receiver 3, maybe a flex for me, or get into that top 12 quarterback range. And for me, that's Justin Fields, because in fantasy, Justin Fields runs really well. And that's what you need. If you want a top 12 quarterback right now, they have to be able to run with the football. And I think that he really could, if he lands in a good spot, such as San Francisco, I think he could really blow up.
So do you think that they traded up for Justin Fields?
Yes, 100%. 100%. If they take Mac Jones, I don't know. I'll eat whatever tweet I had of saying they're not going to take him.
Print it out on paper and eat it.
Yeah.
Do you think that this would change if he would go to the Jets? If the Jets were to take Justin Fields and then Zach Wilson then was the San Francisco pick, is this a different quarterback for you?
No, it'd still be Justin Fields. Zach Wilson is my number 2 overall quarterback for NFL, but Fields would be it for fantasy because rushing is that important. It's just like it's no different than a running back that can't catch the football. You need a quarterback that can run. It gets you extra points. Yeah,
I definitely agree with you. I had a tweet actually about Justin Fields' 40 because it was talked about that he was running in the low 4.4s for his 40, which I think he actually did today in his pro day, right?
Mm-hmm,
I think he ran a 4.44 or something like that. My tweet was with Justin Fields, 7 other quarterbacks since 2000 have run a sub 4.5 40. Only 3 of those guys were drafted in the first round, and that was Michael Vick, Vince Young, and RG3 were the other 3. And then I also mentioned that not only were those 3 quarterbacks all first rounders in the NFL, but they also all had at least one top 12 fantasy season, and they all did it in either their first or second season in the league. You think about RG3 had that rookie of the year, top 12 season in his rookie year. Vince Young was solid for like his first year, then really went downhill. Michael Vick obviously was Michael Vick. So if that's what Justin Fields could potentially be coming into, especially if he's a Niner, I think that could be phenomenal for fantasy football.
Mm-hmm.
So a little more justification onto your pick there.
And you just missed out on your guy here. I see as it rounded out. I could talk that through if you want. They went round 3, went Seth Williams, Kadarius Toney, who's a guy I thought about potentially there. Kellen Mond before Zach Wilson is interesting, but he's had a little bit of hype. Trey Sermon was the other running back I was thinking of at 8, or in the second round there. Trey Lance, and then Pat Freiermuth, it was a Pat Freiermuth, I think, love fest before we hopped on here that people didn't know, but he's a guy that we are both high on. I think that people are sleeping. Could be a really good tight end in the NFL.
Yes. So I was really hoping that you weren't going to take Freiermuth at 8, and I was going to get him at 304.
I did that for you.
Which it was really unfortunate now that I mean, we still could talk about him. That the 2-round difference between him and Kyle Pitts, I think is the biggest game changer in these rookie drafts, because we were talking about I guess we can kind of get into a little bit what we were talking about with Pitts if we're going to talk about Freiermuth a little bit. But taking Pitts at 1.03 means that his hit rate is a top 5 tight end. He needs to be that. If he is, Hayden Hurst or a tight end 10, whatever, like that's not a hit for Kyle Pitts. It is for Pat Freiermuth in the 3rd round. Like that is more than what you are paying for in terms of return on investment for Pat Freiermuth at 303 rather than Pitts at 1.03. And I also believe, this might be a hot take, but I think Freiermuth could also be just as good as Kyle Pitts possibly could be in the NFL. It depends on if Pitts really gets that volume and to be like a Darren Waller or Travis Kelce, but I don't see why Freiermuth can't be like what Ertz was over the past couple of years, or even, I don't think he's going to be Rob Gronkowski. I think it's dangerous to say that, but and a 70 for 908 kind of guy for Freiermuth, I think is well within his range, as much as Pitts could be a 90 for 1210 guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing is like Pitts, if he's top 5, it's still not enough. He has to put up 1,000+ yards to be the 103. He just does. And I know people love athleticism, but remember OJ Howard was athletic. Evan Ingram was athletic. And, a lot of tight ends hitting the NFL is based on fit and scheme and targets. He needs to get 120+ targets to justify 103. Look at who he's over right here. Najee Harris, ETN. I mean, those guys, they're going to be so valuable. To have a running back that can catch is so huge. And having a tight end that's a difference maker is huge as well. But that's only Kelce, Kittle, and Waller. It's not Hawkinson or Fant or whoever else. Those guys, you can get a Freiermuth and it's maybe just below that. So yeah, it's and plus I like Freiermuth a lot. I like his route running. A guy, he's more physical, but also his route running's Mark Andrews-esque, which that would be a pretty good pick here in the 3rd round.
Yep. Yeah, it was a good conversation for a guy that neither one of us picked. I wish I had him at 3.04. But to backtrack a little bit, we kind of filled that with, I was looking up my tweet and Josh McCown. Josh McCown ran a 4.59. At least,
but the rest of the numbers were good though.
The rest were pretty solid. I mean, that's a 100 speed score from a quarterback. He had a 38.5 vertical, 120-inch broad, 6.85 3-cone.
See,
like that's
sick. People don't talk about it. Sick.
Yeah. I mean, that might be why he's was an NFL quarterback for 20 years. Exactly. Journeyman, but he was dude did more than most.
Knocked out the Vikings out of the playoffs. If people don't remember that play, go look that one up. I think it might have been McCown's rookie or 2nd year. Yeah,
I'm sure that lives very close to your heart as a Bears fan.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right. 3.04 here. Really wish that I could have got Pat Freiermuth, but I'm looking at the rest of this list here. And Oh boy, Kellen Mond went before Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Oh boy, because I saw Mac Jones down there.
I know, interesting.
I was kind of interested in taking Matt Jones, but oh boy. So it's between Brevin Jordan and Mac Jones for me. There are a lot of other wide receivers here. I like Terry. I like Rodgers. Tutu Atwell weighs 155 pounds. I think I'm going to actually just end up going Mac Jones here. I'm not doing this on purpose to like take one of every position. But I think Mac Jones there is kind of a value for me, even in one quarterbacks, because I think that he could be like a Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins type of a quarterback. Not really a difference maker in one QB, but I think that it just kind of makes sense at 3.04. And I think he's a safer guy to have that fantasy production rather than, I really like Brevin Jordan as well. And I bet you wanted, I think you wanted Kylan Hill, right?
No, I did not. I wanted, I was going to go, I have three guys. One of them's left. I was going to go Brevin Jordan, who I like a lot, tight end out of Miami, or Ramondre Stevenson was the other one I was going to go with. And the last one, so who I'll pick is Tamarian Terry, Florida State, a guy that I haven't been as high on historically, but he's tall. He has incredible burst for his size. And I think just Florida State's been just a mess. And, you know, he hasn't been able to round out his entire game. He needs to get better at his route running and, you know, maybe being more physical. But I think if you can gamble on a guy that can be 6'4" and run a high 4.3, that's a guy I think at this point in the draft is someone you want to gamble on.
Yeah. I said, I like Terry a lot too. He's on a laundry list of guys in this class with a 19-year-old breakout age at wide receiver, which is pretty impressive just in terms of a whole entire class perspective. So be able to get a guy like Terry with that kind of a profile at wide receiver at 3.08 is, I think, pretty solid. And I was considering him at 3.04. So I really, really like Terry that late. So my question to you is, you really like Ramondre Stevenson. And I'm interested because I don't think I've really heard all too much about him. I tried to highlight him as like this guy could be interesting kind of player in a previous video on this channel. But I'm curious on just kind of a couple of your thoughts on Stevenson.
Yeah. I don't love him. I like him. I mean, right now I think he's my running back 8. But he has he's huge. He plays physical. And for some of those guys, you're like, okay, they're 3 yards in a cloud of dust guy, but he has really good balance and lateral agility, which is not common. So in a straight line, is he going to win? In the NFL, probably not. But again, like everyone has a weakness, and running backs, I think speed is the most overrated thing. I mean, the amount of times, and I talked about this when they were going over 40 times for Javonte Williams. How many times does a guy run at top speed in the NFL to running back? Maybe 5 to 8 times a year, maybe with the ball. Mm-hmm. So, it's about all those grinded out yards and finding alleys. And Stevenson did a good job of that. Oklahoma wasn't featured a lot, came on late. But for a guy that's like
suspended too, right?
Yeah. But being 240 plus and having a good balance, that in this part of the draft, I mean, you need a guy that has a chance to have a LeGarrette Blount, maybe a 1 or 2 years they could start type of career. And that's a guy I think that's a good gamble.
Yeah. I am very interested to see where he goes and when in the NFL draft. Because I'm curious on if that suspension is going to play into his draft capital or not. It wasn't, I think it was weed or something like that, right? Wasn't it like drugs or something?
Yeah, I think it was something minor. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't anything else crazy.
Like Joe Mixon or whatever.
Yeah. Funny you bring that up. Oklahoma, right? So.
Yep. Sorry, Oklahoma fans.
Sorry. But anyway, so we can move on here. I was just really curious on Stevenson because he is an interesting running back to me, as is Kylan Hill as well, to me. So I really liked to hear your thoughts on that and just talking about what he could potentially do in the NFL as a late round guy. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go for my late round running back. This isn't going to be helpful to anybody else who had watched any of my previous videos and knows my auto 4th round pick is Elijah Mitchell. It's so easy to me that he's just going to be there in like every 4th round. I don't know if his 40 is going to bump him up in the NFL draft or on rookie draft boards. But I do really like what Elijah Mitchell can bring to the table. I liked what he was able to do coming out of college. Really super productive, even with like Trey Ragas as well there. And I think that 40, I wasn't expecting him to run like a sub 4.4, but he kind of needed to, just because he is a bit of a smaller guy. But so I really, really like Mitchell as my auto 4th round pick. I've said it for like a month and a half now, and I really hope you agree.
Yeah, he's a nice little player. Honestly, he reminds me of another Elijah M. running back from Louisiana Monroe, Elijah McGuire, who I liked years ago quite a bit. I mean, they're shifty, they're smart, they have a little bit of power, but they're a vision and burst guy. I didn't see that speed on tape. I think he's a nice little player. Yeah, he's a guy that I have an eye on at this point in the draft for sure.
I really liked Elijah McGuire as well. So
I was such a big fan of him, man. Such a big fan of him.
I remember he had that one game where he had like 3 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. And I was like, come on, Jets, do it. Just play him. And then it never happened.
He had this one run where he had power, made a guy miss, and then another guy he made miss grabbed his jersey tail and he dragged him for like 5 yards. It was like the coolest thing I saw. And then he ended up scoring. Yeah, he had a little bit of special to him that I liked, and it didn't hit, so it's a little sad, but oh well.
Yeah. What could have been? So Javian Hawkins, Rakeem Boyd, and Anthony Schwartz were the 3 picks in the 4th round between you and me. So you're on the clock here, 4.08, at least rounding out our picks here. You have whoever you want on this list, or if you got some extra people that you want to shout out as well. I'm all for it, and I'm all for these deep guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now I think the value pick, I'm not going to go with him though, just to talk about another guy, Nico Collins. People don't remember this. So this would have been when he was coming into college. He came in with Turek Black, who I liked a lot. Got hurt, broke his foot a couple different times. He came in with I can't think of his name offhand. Michigan wide receiver, went to Cleveland. He flashed last year. Anyway, he was
Peoples-Jones.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know why my brain farted there. He was the top receiver in that class, but then Nico Collins was by number 8. So they came in with 3 really good receivers, and I think he had the most decorated career actually at Michigan. And you look at Michigan, it was such a dumpster fire of quarterbacks that I don't know that Nico Collins was able to shine. He's long, he's physical, he runs good routes. He's just not fast. If you want to think of him, he's like an Alan Lazard type, which you get him in a good situation, I think he could potentially thrive. So, this late in the draft, I think he's a good one, but I'm going to highlight someone else just for fun. Trevon Grimes, wide receiver, started his career at Ohio State. He was a 5-star guy coming out. For a guy that's 6'4", he's so bursty out of high school. Didn't always come together. It was a lot more flashes in college. Started at Ohio State, then transferred down to Florida, towards ACL his senior year of high school. Had a couple injuries, but he's a guy that, like everyone at Pro Day, flashed his speed, But again, like Terry, in the 4th round, if I'm going to gamble, on a guy that's 6'4", that can run a high 4.3 or a 4.4 flat, that has some pedigree and wasn't consistent. Because in college, sometimes things come up, but you want to gamble on some of those measurables and flashes versus, a floor. Because in the 4th round, you don't want a floor, you want a ceiling.
Googling Trevon Grimes. Just because I told you before, I was like, I don't really know who some of these people are. Because you get deep enough and I'm like, well, I don't really care about people outside the top like 15 at wide receiver.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, Grimes is 9 touchdowns last year.
He did good in the red zone. He could high point. Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially because you think about that Florida team having Kyle Pitts and then Kadarius Toney.
Yep.
And they're already some of a low volume offense in general, even with Kyle Trask. And so that is actually pretty good to see. 38 for 589 and 9.
They also got Justin Shorter down there too. I had to, just for you, man.
Sigh. What could have been?
I know.
But oh no, I didn't think I was going to talk about Justin Shorter today.
It was just for you. I had to, you know.
Yeah, I get it. It's all right. For those of you who don't know, Justin Shorter is a Penn State wide receiver who was like wasn't he a 5-star recruit or something like that?
Yeah, he was going to be the next Dorial Green-Beckham, man.
I think he was the wide receiver 1 in Devi that year, if I remember correctly. Was supposed to be like the best thing in the world and never did anything at Penn State. Never. He was like dropping passes left and right. And it's like so annoying because he had all this hype and potential. And it was like him and I can't remember who the other guy, the guy who transferred to Oregon. He was like 6'5" or whatever.
Juwan Johnson.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Him too. Dropping all those passes, except for the one against Iowa. I'll never forget that. The game winner against Iowa.
But I mean, and then Shorter blew up. He was like 6'4", 230. Then he ballooned up to like 250, 260, and then transferred down to Florida and apparently cut the weight. So, I mean, you know, never know.
Anyway, we don't need to talk about Penn State's troubles. That's all right. Nick, this was a fantastic draft, dude. I had so much fun. Like I always do, but with you especially as well. And it's funny, we do live in the same town now, but we haven't actually met in person. So we need to make sure that we do that. I'm putting that on video to the public.
Yep.
We need to do that very, very soon. Maybe once I'm vaccinated here.
Yeah, man. Anytime. I'll show you the sites here in Madison. There's some good spots.
Sweet. I'm here for it. So just before we close out the video, Nick, why don't you tell the people where they can find you, what you're doing, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so on Twitter at _Nick Whalen. I'm at Dynasty Nerds. We do some film stuff on YouTube. Also at Dynasty Trade Calculator on their podcast. And right now, that's all that I'm doing. I used to make reports. This is the first year I'm not going to make either the graduates or the Devi report. So I just want to enjoy football for a little bit and not grind away. And that's okay with me because I still do film work. It's just I'm not going to put 500 hours into a document.
That's a resource that the community is sorely going to miss because that thing was awesome and info packed. But you're doing a lot of awesome work at the Dynasty Nerds YouTube channel. I feel like every single time I Google player images for a thumbnail, like the thumbnail for your film coverage pops up every single time on like the first page. And I'm like, oh, there it is. And then I go watch it and we're good to go. At least get that perspective. So it's if you guys, I know it's like DLF and Dynasty Nerds or whatever, we're supposed to like compete, but we don't. So definitely go check out Dynasty Nerds' YouTube channel for sure.
Yeah, it's all about learning. Like you talked about analytics, like we all can like learn from each other. That's all it is. So it's just hopefully with people that don't want to grind the film out, we're doing that. And, maybe you guys can pick up a thing or two.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that all being said, we're just going to close out. This is the end of this YouTube video. Please subscribe to the DLF YouTube channel, subscribe to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube channel, like this video, ring the notifications bell, all that awesome YouTube stuff. If you haven't gotten your hands on the DLF Dynasty Draft Guide, please do so. You can get it by becoming a DLF Premium member. You get that PDF guide for 100% free, or you can go to dynastydraftguide.com and purchase it by itself. The links are down in the description below. So with that all being said, everybody, thank you all so much. Nick, thank you for joining me today, and we will catch everybody later.